Good afternoon. Happy Women's History Month and International Women's Day. And welcome to Let's Talk here on WIN TV, where we dive into important issues and have meaningful conversations with inspirational guests. I'm your host, Denise Rollard Barnes, publisher of the Washington Informer, and glad to bring to you today's episode, which is all about empowerment, advocacy, and raising important voices. We have a great lineup for you today. In our first segment, we have the pleasure of speaking with Ofori, a Ghanaian American founder of the African Dream LLC, an organization dedicated to promoting African culture and entrepreneurship. We're also looking forward to talking to Queen Sylvia Nagginda Luswata. We hope that she is going to be able to join us today. She's a fierce advocate for gender equality and women's empowerment. We're also speaking with Tatiana Walker, a doula who is passionate about teaching mothers and families how important their voices are and how to advocate for themselves. And we will be talking to our, our lifestyle reporter, Brenda Seiler, is coming on to do an interview and have a conversation with Laura Flam about her new book, But Will You Love Me Tomorrow? Every time I say that, I want to start singing it. Co-authored by Laura and Emily Leibowitz. So we got a lot to talk about today, and we are highlighting, as you can see, International Women's Day as we celebrate Women's History Month. And before we jump into these conversations, I always like to ask you if you've had a chance to pick up a copy of this week's edition of the Washington Informer. I've got it here. And again, history will show that every issue, Denise always picked up that print paper and showed it to the audience because we want to make sure that you actually pick up a copy of the Informer. We still print a newspaper, believe it or not. And if you haven't, or you can always access the Washington Informer conveniently, any place, anywhere. You can get our digital edition by going to WashingtonInformer.com. That's our website. Go to WashingtonInformer.com. And we hope that you will become a regular subscriber. There's a place there where it'll pop up to ask you to sign in. You can get a copy of our WIN Daily, where we send you news, breaking news from our news desk every single day by our reporters, and a lot of other great things that we like to offer to our e-subscribers. So make sure you go to WashingtonInformer.com and sign up. And while you're tuning into the show today, share this broadcast. We hope that you will share on all of your social platforms. We're talking about Instagram, X, formerly known as Twitter, Threads, Nextdoor, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So share this resource with those who you think might gain something from listening to this broadcast. Being a part of the Informer family, we're located here in the DMV, actually in DC, actually in Southeast, actually in Ward 8. That's where we're based. And so, we are in what I call the heart of the community. And but still, we cover local news that has impact nationally and internationally, which is some of what we're going to focus on today. We want you to also subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's Washington Informer TV, no spaces. So if you're on YouTube, just subscribe to the channel, Washington Informer TV. And as you all know, there's no cost for subscribing to any of these or picking up the Informer. So we hope that you will do that and become a part, as I said, a part. One more time, we're going to take a look at our weekly news broadcast by Curtis Knowles.
This is WIN TV News, bringing you the news that matters. The Maryland Transit Administration will seek approval next month for as much as $425 million in relief payments related to delays in the Purple Line light rail project. Officials announced the extra payments, along with a roughly 234-day delay, will push the line's completion date back from spring of 2027 to December of that same year. Nearly 90% of the utility work is now complete, according to Ray Biggs, a senior project director with the administration. The 16.2-mile east-west line connects New Carrollton Metro Station in Prince George's County and the Bethesda Metro Station in Montgomery County and includes 21 stops. The line is being built under the Public-Private Partnership, or P3 agreement, and the Purple Line Transit Partners agreed to build the system for the state and maintain it over 3 decades, for which the state will pay the private company, and when the term is over, the entire project reverts to state ownership. The D.C. Council has approved the sweeping crime bill, the legislation known as Secure D.C. Omnibus Amendment Act of 2024, which is a result of the rise in crime across the city in 2023. Councilmember Brooke Pinto introduced the bill, which has support from D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser and U.S. Attorney for D.C. Matthew Graves, among others. The bill expands the definition of carjacking to help prosecution of those cases and adds new felony offenses for endangerment with an unlawful discarding of guns. It also makes it easier for judges to keep adults and kids charged with crimes detained while they wait for their trials. As well, under the legislation, D.C. police will be able to create drug-free zones in areas plagued by crime. The Department of Pediatrics and Child Health and the Howard University College of Medicine has scored major funding toward their efforts in HIV prevention and treatment. Gilead Sciences Incorporated awarded the health leaders nearly $1 million in grant funding for a new initiative geared toward improving the HIV landscape for Black women and girls. Patricia Houston, project director at Howard's HIV and Hematology Research Unit, leads the DPCH's role in the initiative alongside Dr. Sohail Rana, professor at Howard and director of the pediatric hematology. The university will collaborate with several leading health advocates and organizations, including Dr. Miranda C. Ward, an assistant professor at George Washington University, and the nonprofit organization Health HIV, and several other entities to promote empowerment through engagement, education, and enrichment for women and girls.
Thank you, Curtis. Always great to hear good news, even news that might not always make it into the Informer, but we're here to keep you informed. That's what the title means, and to talk about those issues that impact our community. Before we go on with our guests, I need a favor. So I've been on a couple of phone calls and talked to various people. And this is Women's History Month. And, you know, it's just interesting to me. We think that we have challenges when it comes to Black history. But when it comes to women's history, people sometimes seem to be at a loss of coming up with names of individuals, especially here in the District of Columbia, that we need to shout out, celebrate, who've made significant impacts on the city, who we need to commemorate, maybe even name monuments or statues or street names or schools after. And I don't know where the advocacy is for that. And so that's what I'm starting right now. So if you can think of, and I want you to put this in the chat. I'm not sure how many of you all are out there listening, but if you can come up with some names, we certainly would like to hear from you, to have people that we think or that you think are greatly overlooked, either in the past or presently, right? There are folks who are still with us. And it was interesting. I was at an event not too long ago, and someone was talking about the first woman who served as a judge in the DC Superior Court. And they're going down the list, but right in front of us was the first woman mayor of the District of Columbia, Sharon Pratt, but at that time she was known as Sharon Pratt Kelly. And she was sitting right there, the first female mayor of the District of Columbia. And we can think of so many other, I would think, or individuals who we should recognize for the things that they've done in the city or in this region. So I think I can see the chat here. My producer just stepped out. We're trying to identify one of our guests and get them on board. But it would be really, really helpful if you all could come up with some names. I am so excited by what our editor did last year for Women's History Month, for Black History Month. Every week we found individuals. Kathy Hughes is one who we could have used this month as the founder, well, not the founder, but the owner of WOL radio station. You know, she bought that station from Doula Hughes, who was formerly her husband, and moved on, and she maintained the station. But, you know, just to be able to honor women in media, women in politics, women in health, women, you name the type, women in law, women in government, women in science, women in technology. All of those individuals there are spaces or places where we should be recognizing them. And so it would be helpful just to be able to hear who in your sphere, who in your audience are individuals that you think, or women that you think need to be raised up. I heard there was and I can't remember her name. I feel so badly about it, but it was a woman that was one of the first who who uh, brought golf uh, at the Langston Golf Course, and so we're going to look into her story. She's no longer with us, but she was one among many others who started the women's golf team here in the District of Columbia. We may even get them on because, I mean, who thinks about women in golf? And then, we're forging a relationship with the Washington Spirit, the women's soccer team here in the District of Columbia. And so we're going to have some sheroes from that entity as well. So I'm just saying, if you know of anybody that you think that we should raise or talk about in the next couple of weeks while we're celebrating Women's History Month, go ahead and share those names with us. We'll do some of the research, or if you have it, you can share that as well. We'd love to hear from you. And, you can reach us with any comments that you have at news, N-E-W-S, at WashingtonInformer.com. Again, that's news at WashingtonInformer.com. So now it's my pleasure to bring on our first guest, now that I have sort of rambled on a little bit, and hopefully he is well situated. This is Ofori, who is the founder of the African Dream LLC, which is a media and consulting entity that focuses on showcasing the positive stories, achievements, and potential of Africa.
Indeed.
It's Diaspora. Oral, welcome to WIN TV and Let's Talk.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to an exciting conversation, and happy Women's History Month, and happy International Women's Day, and we appreciate all our sisters and the ladies out there, and let's keep it going.
We appreciate you. One, we know that you get settled. You are going over to the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Is that correct?
Yes, I am here at the Smithsonian African Art. So there's some African music on the background.
Oh, you're at the Museum of African Art.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. That's a beautiful, beautiful venue.
But yeah, it's been exciting. I have as part of what I do for my work, I'm bringing about 10 of the top Ghanaian performing music artists to tour the museum. It's a private tour, and it starts in about an hour from now. But I figured I'd be here early, do your interview, and also get to chat with your audience before that. So yeah.
Well, Earl, we share a mutual mission. And yours, which is to challenge stereotypes and to promote a balanced and accurate narrative about Africa through, I stole this from your website, through various media platforms, events, and initiatives. And we know, I mean, when we talk about challenging the stereotypes, I talked with a reporter the other day who said, Denise, why do you like to go to Africa? I mean, what do you see over there? And I was trying to paint for him places where I've gone, including Ghana, where it's like Washington, D.C. in many respects, But what are some of those stereotypes that you challenge?
First of all, I feel people need to keep an open mind when it comes to Africa. There are preconceived perceptions about the continent that is based on media. The very media that I'm using to challenge those stereotypes, that very media has been used for centuries and centuries to paint a bleak and negative image about Africa, where even up to this day, as far back as I first set foot in America in 2007, people were asking me, do people still live on trees in Africa? So I feel like it's important for people to keep an open mind. It's important for people to question everything that they see in the media about Africa. But most importantly, it's the heaviest responsibility, in my opinion. Do your own research, find out for yourself, read. But social media, and the proliferation of media in general in these modern times make it easy for people to do their own research, but they don't. Rather, they like to go the soft way where things are thrown at them. And when things are thrown at you, the possibility that they might be biased, they might be wrong, or they might be fake is super high. So just keep an open mind, go out there, do your own research, and do research from the appropriate sources. You know,
And speaking of sources, you have the African Dream
right.
LLC. Tell us why you started that and what it is.
So the answer to that question, partially half has been taken care of in that first question you asked me.
Right.
The other half is I felt like it's very important for young people to have very authentic and proper information about Africa, because like Africa is one of the biggest continents. Even when you look at the global map, the modern global map that is used in schools and elsewhere for research, Africa has been drawn very tiny. You know, other continents have been made to look, and even sometimes other countries have been made to look bigger than Africa, which is not the fact. The
Mm-hmm.
map shows Africa huge enough to fit all of the United States, Brazil, China, parts of Russia, all there, all in that continent. So Africa is where it's at. It's just that we haven't had the opportunity to tell our story in our own way, where people can get to understand what we are as a continent and who we are as a people, and realize the opportunity we present in all aspects of life, from politics to economic aspects to religion to business to cultural, every sense of, human endeavor. And I feel like I needed to tell that story, and I needed, a platform where people can have the opportunity to ask the questions that they would, ask themselves, or they would want to ask people from the continent, and get the proper answer that they deserve. It's a small contribution, but I feel like small and great things, small things are born, out of small efforts, and they eventually become great. With support from people like you who give me the platform to highlight what I do as far as my work is concerned.
Oh yeah, and hopefully the opportunity to partner and help to elevate some of the work that you're doing with our audiences. So when you go to the Africa, I apologize, I've been to the website, I haven't explored the website,
Sure.
but tell me what the African Dream LLC offers.
So the African Dream LLC is an information and communication research consultancy where
Okay.
some of our clients include Howard University and HBCU. We have other HBCU clients like Morehouse College, Virginia State University, and embassies as well, like the Embassy of Ghana. So what we basically offer is to help people do research on all subjects Africa related, get them to understand better how things work and function on the continent, and of course connect people who are interested in Africa related stuff on or off the continent from here in the diaspora. Basically, we're building a bridge with folks here in the diaspora to reach the continent, and doing the opposite as well, because we feel like people coming together to work creates huge opportunities for everyone on all sides of the spectrum. So yeah, we feel like collaboration is an awesome thing, and we open our doors to collaboration from all sorts of people, not just Africans, because the world is a small place, and the more we work together, the better it'll be for all of us to move forward quickly and positively.
Yeah, one of the, I mean, we're going to wrap up in a minute, but one of the questions when we talk about stereotypes, of course, we're talking about American or African American stereotypes as it relates to Africa. But what are some of the stereotypes Africans have about African Americans or America?
So firstly, some Africans, I can't speak for all Africans, but I'm an African and I've had an experience. Some Africans think Americans live in a bubble. And so when they meet Africans, it's hard for them to come out of that bubble. They are more curious about, hey, is this how it's like, out there? They feel like some of the Africans feel like non-Africans or Africans in the diaspora or even Americans should keep an open mind,
Mm.
first of all, and then they don't like having their intelligence insulted with the silly questions. So when you're asking questions, just even though we want you to be genuine, we want you to also be sincere and respectful as well when you ask your questions. That's secondly. Um, also, people feel like Africa is underdeveloped or undeveloped. There are certain places in Africa where I can't even afford to live. Like there's the Victoria Island in Nigeria, you know, it's
Yes.
a super huge, expensive, exclusive place. And there are many places like that in other parts of Africa. So just when you visit the continent or when you're learning about the continent, keep an open mind because that's where you begin to see opportunities and that's where you begin to attract opportunities to you because when you speak to them and they see like, oh, I can work with this person, because of how they are talking and it looks like they've done a little bit of homework about the continent and so
Right.
and feel more comfortable and they open up some more to you. You'd be amazed the amount of opportunities, the amount of money, not just in cash but in mineral wealth that is in Africa. The whole world, when I was growing up, my mom was like, the whole world wants to be in Africa and Africans just want to be happy in their own place.
Wow. Yeah.
What
You
they
know,
also want to go out there and take that happiness shared with the world.
and we know that, in recent years, I know that, more people are visiting the continent,
Yeah,
going to different countries on the continent,
sure.
having some have made the continent home,
Mm,
just as there are lots of Africans who have come to the U.S. and made the United States home.
mhm.
So that's when we say the diaspora, and just for the sake of the audience, define in your words what diaspora means to you.
For me, diaspora means opportunity. Diaspora means networking. And diaspora means a seed that can grow and make Africans on the continent and off the continent work together to uplift the world globally.
Right.
Because there's so much potential in Africa. Right now, the diaspora, provides a huge amount of, economic assistance to the continent by way of remittances. The diaspora provides a huge progressive movement for not just the United States of America, but other European countries, just by way of their intellectual wealth where you have some of the top doctors, majority of them in the US and the UK, being Nigerians and Ghanaians, for instance. So it's the diaspora is opportunity. Diaspora is a seed that needs to be nurtured and nourished, and diaspora is networking, connectivity, and cooperation.
Well,
That's
I want to thank you for this opportunity to connect and network with you. We've put up, and I'm going to ask that we put it up again, how folks can find the African Dream, your website,
right.
and to reach out and to use it as a resource to learn more
Sure.
about what you're doing, but also what those opportunities are that you've been
Yeah.
sharing with us.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Thank you
I
so
want to thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you as well. And I look forward to doing this again. I feel like this conversation has more connections to it and we need to have it again sometime
Oh
in the
no, we definitely will, because we're gonna get a little bit more focused
future.
and talk about some specific things.
Sure.
We will be partnering with the Corporate Council on Africa for their upcoming business summit in
Nice.
Dallas in May, and
Nice.
so we would definitely want to have a conversation with you about business opportunities as well. So
Definitely.
there's a lot to talk about, Oral.
I know. We are looking forward to it. We are looking forward to it, Denise.
All righty.
Thanks once again for this opportunity. Happy International Women's Day. Happy Women's History Month. And power to the women.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us. All right. Yeah. And while we're talking about the continent, I am looking forward to our next guest. I think she's with us, Queen Sylvia Nagginda Luswata. I'm hoping I pronounced her name correctly. Hello there, Queen Sylvia. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm
Happy,
well.
happy International Women's Day.
Yes, yes. I was a little nervous. I said, no, we can't lose her. We really are looking forward to talking to you today and about your book and your work, what you've been doing, and I wanted to share. I read something that I thought was interesting that I'd like to open up with, if you don't mind. But it was a statement that you made a while back. I hope it's correct, but it said, when you became queen, and I should say queen of Buganda, which is one of the largest kingdoms in Uganda in East Africa. But you said when you became queen, you had two distinct choices: to maintain the status quo, be the traditional wife and stay safe, or play an active role in shaping our community and our beloved nation. And you said, I chose to do both. So you're
Yeah.
carrying your title with a mission. Let's talk about that mission. Queen Sylvia, I mean, one, how did you become queen, and what that means for you with regards to your mission for your country?
Yes, thank you so much. I first left Uganda when I was about 18 years. That was in the early 80s. And I went to America to join my mother after, I didn't grow up with her, I grew up with my grandparents. Now, when I left, that was during the time when, Uganda was going through a civil war. But one thing I remember, I said, I'm going back home after 5 years. Of course, when I reached the US, I didn't go back after 5 years. It was after 18 years. But during that time, I did study, I worked, and all along, I had this urge that I have to go back to Uganda one day and contribute to the development of my country. And of course, people would say, but there's so much trouble there. Why would you like to leave America and go back to Uganda? But it's just something that I had on my mind. So fast forward, if I may, in 18 years after I had stayed in the United States, that's when I was proposed to by the Kabaka, or the King of Buganda. And I went back to Uganda after 18 years. And at that time, of course, just like any woman, when you do get married, you're a wife, and women do work as well, whether it's in the home or outside of the home. So I thought about what I always wanted to do, and that is to continue with my development, to do developmental work, and be able to contribute, something that I've always wanted to do. And now that I'm back as Nabagereka, or as the Queen of Buganda, the platform was so much bigger and better. And so I thought this is a perfect thing that I should do, in addition to actually playing my role as Nabagereka, or as a wife of the Kabaka of Buganda.
I love that. I mean, I'm using the short version, Queen, but Nabagereka, that's another term for queen. Is that correct?
This is the title in Buganda. It's the wife of a king, or the wife of the Kabaka. And the Kabaka is the king. Okay. It's referred to as Nabagereka, which is translated as to organize, to prepare, to provide, to serve.
Wow. Yeah. So you stepped into a role that was clearly defined, not wife, homemaker, childbearer, whatever, but a wife a title that was really defined about how you would serve. And I guess it fit with what you were already doing and wanted to do more of.
You see, not so much defined as the expectations really were not that I would go out in the office and start working. As a matter of fact, it was more of the traditional role of staying in the palace and doing what we have to do as the wife of a king. But and yes, again, the description of that would still very much fit, because as Nabagereka, you're the mother. You have to, whether it's in the home only, you have to be working and providing, sharing, and so on and so forth. But what I did, I think I stepped out of there, and also in addition to that, I started a foundation in 2000. That was a year after I got married, which is called the Nabagereka Development Foundation. And that was, the mission is to use culture or to leverage culture to improve the social, economic well-being of children, women, and youth. So those were the target groups that I've been focusing on, and also specifically within the areas of health and education and community empowerment or development.
So, as we celebrate Women's History Month, but particularly International Women's History Month, I'm interested in knowing kind of in your role, in the work that you've done, the book that you've written, how do you see yourself dealing with gender issues and empowering women, not only on the diaspora or in Uganda, because now that you've written the book, it's all over the place. And so what does that look like when you say empowering women and promoting gender equality from your perspective?
Right. Like I said, one of the main areas actually I've been targeting this, working with for the last over 20 years is women. And we have, again, through the foundation and also partnering with other organizations, done quite a bit of work around trying to get women groups together, like empowering them, like in terms of agriculture, business skilling, income, trying to promote income generating projects, doing advocacy around, how do you get women's voices to be heard? How can they be able to access financing? So we've been working on in different areas. But within advocacy, actually, one of the biggest projects that I've worked on for some time with the sexual reproductive health, that's around women's health, maternal health, child health. And in Uganda, as you may know, it has the highest fertility rate. On the average, I think each woman can have up to like 7 children. I think that's according to the statistics.
Wow.
So the fertility rate is quite high. And then the poverty levels are also extremely high. So it's not really balancing out. So one of the things that, the issues that we felt we had to address was that because most these women, as they had children, they were also being abandoned by men, because men then they go on to another woman and have more children. So we had to say that, okay, you as women too have to get information, educate yourselves, and be able to say that, okay, I have to have children that I can manage, not to be, because, you look at this in so many different respects, because women, sometimes they go out there, they may have as many children as they can, not because they want, but it also has to do with the burdens of not having enough. So therefore they need somebody to support them. And in that process of getting that somebody to support them, they end up getting more children. So information was very crucial.
That's a universal problem. Yes, we know that. We know that happens. Right.
Exactly. So that information is very crucial. So the work was around, advocating for sexual reproductive health and rights, and with adolescents as well, and then also around, the areas of business, empowering them with the right skills so they can manage their businesses and starting businesses. Another thing that's also very high in Uganda, we have so many startups, but at the same time, not many of them go through the 3rd year. And people are very ambitious, they want to work, but sometimes they don't have access to the right information or the financing to be able to grow those businesses. So all that is, some of those programs we do tackle them to be able to enable them.
Let me ask you, how long have you served as queen?
Served as queen. And I got married in 1999.
Okay.
So that is 24 years.
So you married a king?
Yes, I did.
Okay. All right. And so in that time, I'm just curious about, because we are short on time, but I know you are as well. What do you think has been your greatest achievement? I know you said you started the nonprofit, and you listed a lot of the issues that Ugandan women face. Um, can you point to something that you are most proud of so far in your tenure or your reign?
There are quite a number of things, but if the choice is to give one, I would say there's one of my flagship programs, which is called Ekisakate, and that is a children's mentoring, training, skills development camp. It's a holiday camp that it has been running for the last 17 years, and it focuses on children who are between the ages of 6 and 18. And we aim to give them, to instill values. One of the things that we realized after having worked for some time is that there was a moral decline, and that is something that was affecting us in so many ways, in all the different respects, whether it's in education, in health, and others. So we felt that we needed to get that. So it's really it's mentoring the children, instilling values, also encouraging with spiritual development, because we feel that it's very important, no matter what religion it is, but as long as the spiritual growth really gives them direction and a compass in which to move, and also imparting skills, exposing them to different, different areas, different activities, so they can say that, okay, this is something that I can do in the future.
Wonderful.
So that camp has been running for the last 17 years, and we're still going. We've been hosting it in different schools in Uganda, because it's a holiday camp, so they also stay in for about two weeks.
Nice.
And right now, the program is building its own home.
Now, I would want people to believe that I'm talking to you from Uganda, but you actually happen to be here in Washington, D.C., isn't that correct?
Yes.
So
yes, I'm in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, what brings you here? I understand you're having a book signing soon here in D.C.?
Yes, having a book signing, in case, you probably have a copy of my book.
Yes.
Yes, that's what brings me here. And also, of course, to promote my foundation, the Nabagreka Development Foundation.
Tell us where the book signing is going to take place.
Well, today, in different places. Today, I'm at the Links in Potomac with the Links organization. There will be ladies there. We have at the National Press Club, and also among the Ugandan community, there's a location where it's we're holding a book signing, and I think there are 2-3 other places.
Okay, I caught you off guard with that, and we should have had that list of places that we could share with the audience. Yes. But when you're the signing at the National Press Club is going to take place, when is that?
On Friday the 15th.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, yes. I'm going to give you a little tidbit. The National Newspaper Publishers Association, which is the association of over 200 Black-owned newspapers around the country, will also be at the press club on Friday the 15th. So it may be a great connection to meet with some of those publishers, and that they can learn a little bit more about you, and of course help to people to sign up to get copies of your book, which would be really good. So hope that happens.
To that. Thank you.
How long are you going to be in Washington?
For about a week. Okay. Not long.
All right.
About 7 years.
All right. So just for fun conversation, what has so far been your favorite place to visit in DC?
I used to live in this area.
Okay. All right.
I lived here before I moved to Uganda, because I was in New York for 13 years, and then I moved to Maryland, the DC area. So I worked in DC, lived in Maryland. and I am kind of coming home because I stayed here for 5 years, and I liked it. I liked the area. It's the quality of life, actually, overall, generally. It is, it's very, it's not as cosmopolitan as New York, but at the same time, it has that quality, it has that feel with this natural environment in Maryland, especially you have the trees, you have all these, so I love it. I love Maryland.
Yes, and of course
I love
the diversity of the area, I'm sure, is good, because you talked about the large Ugandan community that's here as well.
Yeah, that's yes.
Yeah, I want to thank you for taking this time. I know you're busy, and I just wanted to thank you for taking some time with us. Again, we hope that people will pick up a copy of your book. Give us the name of the title. Give us the title of the book again.
It's called The Nabagereka, Life, Passion, and Duty. So that name, Nabagereka, Life, Passion, and Duty.
And that's a beautiful picture on the cover. But those words, I think, also would be instructional for all women to read, to learn your story, but also to learn what we all have to offer as we make this world a better place. So thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you so much.
All right. See you soon. Okay, we're going to move on. I tell you, this has been a very global conversation. And I say global as it relates to Africa, which is, I call it my home away from home. My home, this became my home. And anyway, it's great. Love having folks from the continent. We've got to build bridges. We've got to build those bridges. So now we're going to talk to Tatiana Walker, who will be joining us. She's a doula. And I know that after hearing that news from the Queen about the average woman in Uganda has 7 children, you would be a busy doula.
Yes. Don't think I'd get much sleep, but that's a good thing.
Because it's interesting how birth rates, are declining everywhere. But it doesn't sound like that's happening there. Tatiana, I want to thank you. You're an infant care specialist and in-birth and postpartum doula. Tell us what a doula is.
This is my favorite question because everyone always answers it differently. For me, I say that a doula is a megaphone. We're here to amplify your voice to help you achieve the birth that you want. A lot of births, when they're not a doula attendant, they can fall into the realm of not being present because they're going through a really tremendous emotional and physical trial, and it's very hard to keep your brain in the game. Your doula is there to help you they're there to follow your lead and help you achieve everything that you need, but also keeping you grounded to your body.
But we're talking in perspective with childbirth.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. All right. Just want to make sure that, I know that, and I think other folks do too, but I just wanted to be very clear. And then I thought maybe the role of the doula ended once the child, once the delivery has happened. But I noticed, your process also involves postpartum birth. So talk about that. Why is that so important to have someone that's still kind of helping you through that end of birth process, childbirth?
So a lot of the times when people are leaving the hospital, they're very underprepared for what it's like to be with a newborn. You're going to lose the most sleep of your life ever when you have a new baby in the house. So the postpartum doula is there to help you start a new routine, whether that be a sleep routine or a schedule for breastfeeding. They're there to teach you different techniques for how to breastfeed. They're there to help you with laundry sometimes, or meal prepping, or even just sometimes mental health check-ins, because a lot of the times we're not realizing that mothers and even fathers are having postpartum depression until it's to a point of, I don't want to say too late, but to a point where it's risking their health and the child's health at times.
You mentioned fathers. That's the first. This is the first for me. Postpartum depression, or that fathers may experience. What does that look like?
It presents similarly to the mother. It can be having a trouble connecting with their child. It can be feeling like they have regrets sometimes, regretting going through with this. They were very excited in the beginning and now they feel like they have failed. Sometimes they're very anxious about being alone with their child because they're scared that they're not going to do something right. And so in turn, mom gets a lot of the pressure and she's forced to take on majority of the role of caretaker because he is very overwhelmed with the idea of messing up and being a failure. And it can be often overlooked because it's just seen as laziness sometimes or not caring or not wanting to help. But in reality, he's struggling too.
Wow, it's interesting. And it's always the angst or joke that some mothers have, they're the
Mhm.
caretakers and the father's the babysitter. As
Yeah,
if, there's some
it's
strange person out there that's taking care of their own child. So,
yeah. Language is a big deal in this in the parenting role, like, even, like, when talking to your own child, I had to, like, come to that realization as an adult myself, just not everything is meant to be hurtful, but there was definitely a better way we could have said something.
you're doing something called the fourth trimester postnatal retreat. What is that?
Yes. So our founder, Megan, she is a licensed healthcare professional. She had a very trying labor with her daughter and a very harsh postpartum period. And so, as we know, the mortality rates with women have just been steadily increasing. In 2019, it was only 20.1. And in 2021, only 2 years later, it was 32.9% of 1,000, oh gosh, 100,000, I'm so sorry, 100,000 live births. And I think she finally just said enough was enough, and she wanted to find a way that she could help women from conception all the way through however many years they need. As I like to say, it's 4T for life. We're here for you from the moment you conceive until whenever you need us, whether that be childcare at home with your 4-year-old, helping you get a sleep schedule started, helping you find a mental health therapist and teaching you how to breastfeed, helping your parents adjust to, grandparenthood, because that can be a big adjustment for most. They have a parent who is overbearing and making it harder for them to learn how to be a parent. And so we offer classes that just show you so many things in so many ways to be your best possible self for your family and for your child.
I hear so many women, I think, who become mothers and say, "Boy, I wish there was a book for this." But now there's a
Mhm.
person called a doula for this.
Yeah.
At what point do you bring that person? One, how do you find someone, to be a doula, and at what point during the pregnancy do you, I'll say, invite that person into your life? How does that work?
So some people like to use word of mouth to find a doula.
Hmm.
For us, like, you can go on our website at fourthtrimester.com and you can look for a doula. Sometimes it's a simple Google search or going on Instagram. My favorite place is Facebook groups, other Facebook groups asking other moms what they think. But we recommend that you come the moment you find out you're pregnant because nutrition is vital in pregnancy. You want to nourish your body with the proper things so that way you can be not only sound of body, but sound of mind. Because, like I said, nutrition is everything. I don't know, most people don't know this, but having heartburn, if you always lay on your right side, you're increasing the risk of heartburn. Versus if you lay on your left side, you can decrease that. And getting a doula earlier in the game allows you to learn all these things so that way you know how to manage your pregnancy for yourself instead of those short 30-minute doctor visits where you checked off all the boxes of being okay and then you're sent on the way to figure out the rest for yourself.
Why did you decide to get into this business of becoming a doula?
That is the hardest question I've ever had to answer because it's always been a calling. I've always wanted to be a midwife. I've always wanted to be in labor and delivery. It's just something I've always wanted to do. And midwifery school is very hard. So I was looking for a medium in between, like, now and then. And I found out what being a doula was. And A lot of people say becoming a doula before becoming a midwife will make you the best midwife possible for your clients because you learned everything outside of the medical scope. You learn how to calm someone, the natural ways to induce labor or to help labor progress. You learn how to communicate with people and make them feel empowered and to trust themselves.
That's a great answer. I mean, and you have accomplished that with me on this show. I am in no way pregnant or having a baby anytime soon, but sometimes doing this show, you feel a little bit nervous. You have calmed me. So I appreciate that. It works. It works. So, one area, and again, running out of time as usual, but when it comes to, which we don't often think about, maybe is this the queer and BIPOC community. Do they present some, I don't know, if issues or work on your part that might be different than others? How do you work with that community?
For me, I feel that it is very important to teach the queer and BIPOC community how to speak up for themselves. Because as a Black woman yourself, sometimes, people deem you speaking up for yourself as you being rude or being outgoing and not in a good way. And so a lot of the times I'm having to explain to my clients that you are allowed to say no. No doctor, no person can force you to do anything you are not comfortable with. If someone is using language that makes you uncomfortable, it is perfectly okay to walk away. You are not obligated to stay around. And at fourth trimester, we have mental health therapists that are trained in these departments to help you through these progress, to help you train your mind to being okay with setting a boundary and saying enough is enough and that you do deserve more than what that person is giving you.
Wow, that's great. That's wonderful. I mean, because there is bias and discrimination in just about every aspect of life that we live in. And so it's good to have a doula that's equipped to, help walk people through that path. I think, and this is a joke, and then I'm going to let you leave, but I think when I had my first son, and I'm in, not yet in the delivery room, and the doctor's telling me it's too early to push. And my father came in and said, he can't tell you what to do. Push him out. I was like,
I
well,
would
I
whisper
can't
that
write.
as a doula. Yep. I know exactly what you mean.
So
I've been
I
in
would
that
have loved
situation
to.
so many times.
I would love to have had you in the room to say, "Look, Doc, this is let's just let
Well,
her."
you know your body better than anyone ever could. You're the only one feeling everything in those moments. A doctor
Yeah,
could see it, but you're the one feeling it. If you
right.
feel like you have to push that baby out, it might be time to push that baby out.
Well, I was like, do I listen to the doctor? Do I listen to a father? Do I listen
Mhm,
to myself? And that's what you're saying. Listen to your own
mhm.
body. And
Yes,
but having someone like yourself there, I'm sure is just a great thing. I want to thank you for joining us and having this conversation during Women's History Month. I mean, there's a whole history about, like you say, midwifery and the roles that midwives have played in birth that we are beginning to find more acceptable again today.
mhm.
And then the role of doulas. So this is a great time to have that conversation. We appreciate you joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity for letting me talk.
Sure, sure.
Mhm.
Well, have a good day. I know you have some babies back there that you have to attend to.
Mhm. Okay, have a good day. Bye.
All right, thanks a lot. We're going to move now to Brenda Seiler, our lifestyle editor, who's been patiently waiting in the wings to talk to Laura Flim about their new book. So, Brenda, I'm going to let you take it from here.
Hello, everybody, and thank you so much, Denise. You've had some great guests today, and happy Women's History Month, happy International Women's Day, and we're going to talk about girl singing groups, those
Oh,
R&B groups that we always loved listening to, starting in the late 50s through the 70s, and we're going to talk about this wonderful book, But Will You Love Me Tomorrow? And
okay.
one of the co-authors is with us today, Laura Flam, and we're so happy to have her with us. Her partner in crime on this wonderful history of girl groups is not with us today, Emily Leibowitz, and we're sorry she's not here with us. But Laura, welcome. to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here.
And so the name of our show is Let's Talk. So let's talk about these wonderful girl groups that we have been loving for years, and we can continue to sing those songs, those of us of a certain age. We're talking about the Chantels, the Blossoms, the Dixie Cups, Martha Reeves and the Vandellas, the Marvelettes, the Ronettes, the Shirelles, the Supremes, of course, the Velvelettes. That's just a few of them. But talk about this wonderful history and the research that went into compiling an in-depth overview of these girls and what they mean to the American music landscape.
Oh, absolutely. And a little earlier, we were talking about overlooked women, which I think that the women of the girl groups definitely fall into this category. We define the girl groups as 3 to 5 member young vocal harmony groups that were inspired by and came out of doo-wop and R&B in the 1950s. And these were a bunch of young girls who took over the airwaves of the radio, flew up the charts. The song "Will You Love Me Tomorrow," on which the book is titled by the Shirelles, was their first #1. And the genre of girl groups the music is so important. You know, you just joked that people of your generation or your age grew up on it, but somehow it's the music that every generation since the generation that grew up on it has also grown up with. And so it's this remarkable group of songs and that everybody knows, and they're on all the time. Yet the voices of those songs, the women that voice them, are pretty mysterious and have been pretty overlooked in history, and music history, and also in history, because not only did they record all these wonderful songs, but this was the 1950s and 60s, which was obviously a decade of so much change, a time of so much change in the country. And they ended up being real warriors at the forefront of the civil rights movement too, in the 50s and 60s, touring. And just another thing that they're not given credit for when you hear the song "Be My Baby" that you don't think of.
Well, it's interesting in terms of part of the overview that you just gave. You talked about doo-wop, but basically I've always felt that the term doo-wop was applied to male groups of that era versus the girl groups. And one of the things that we spoke about when I interviewed you a little while ago was that the girl groups may have been considered the first in what we call the pop music category.
Absolutely. The girl groups did come out of the guy doo-wop groups because they were living, in New York City, most of the girl groups that made it really big and that we cover in the book. And there were, literally there were groups on every corner singing harmonies. The Chantels, that were one of the first girl groups that came out with their song "Maybe." The Chords, who sang "Shaboom," were on their block, and they were, they saw these guy groups and thought, we can do this too. But in terms of the music that they created, it's true, it was not doo-wop and it was not R&B. It was a new genre that Judy Craig, actually, from the Chiffons, who sing "He's So Fine" and "One Fine Day," two of the songs that are just part of, the collective consciousness of this country. She's the one who originally said, I believe we were the first pop artists, and we really believe that it's true. They ended up also sort of creating this prototype that has been used over and over and over again by other pop artists and girl groups who've gone on to, there are girl groups now, and there have been girl groups in every decade, huge famous girl groups. Without the Supremes, we wouldn't have Destiny's Child and we wouldn't have Beyonce, So, not only do they have these incredible songs, but they also really empowered a whole generation of young girls to go out there and say, you know what, if they can do it, I can do it too, and start their own musical careers.
Well, yes, and as you mentioned, the Chiffons, "Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow?" The song that kind of gave us the title of your book, that was written by Carole King. We know who she is, and her ex-husband, the late Jerry Goffin. But then let's talk about, One Fine Day was the Chiffons. Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow was recorded by the Shirelles. And then let's talk about some other ones. The one that you mentioned a little while ago that was a part of the Phil Spector Wall of Sound music, Be My Baby by the Ronettes, and a group called the Bobettes. They came out of Harlem. They recorded a hit, Mr. Lee. But one of the things that the book touches on, yes, it goes kind of like decade by decade and trends. It's an easy read because you have applied titles to each of the chapters that allows the reader to jump around. People do not have to read this in a chronological order. Maybe there's a certain decade that the reader is interested in, and based on the title of the chapter, you can go right there. Can you talk about in terms of how you organize the information, because it is an American music lover's guide to this style of music?
Thank you for saying that. That's a wonderful compliment. So the book is formatted as an oral history, meaning it is told in the first person by the people that were there, singers, producers, songwriters, people that were in the room, which is something that we really felt we wanted to just present a place for women to express, to tell their own stories. We didn't feel as authors that we should be an authority of deciding what a truth was. You know, everybody has a different idea of what happened, of what they were even told at the time. So the way that the book is laid out is pretty much chronologically, starting out in the mid 50s and ending in present day, though the real most of it ends around 1965, when the music kind of falls out of favor. And it's a lot of the groups had a lot of similar collective experiences. You know, they met as young friends, or they were family members who, you know, had a vision and rehearsed and made their own clothes, or, you know, came up with their looks. And so we wanted to make sure that it wasn't the same people saying the same thing over and over again. So we basically use different groups to sort of buttress themes to carry you chronologically through the book.
And one of the issues that came out, which probably impacted a lot of groups of that era, one, they really weren't getting paid very well. And two, many of them were actual composers of their songs and of their hits, but they were not given the credit for being the composer. Therefore, whenever there was a gold record award or a Billboard listing of where the song falls on the chart, the attribution was given to somebody else, perhaps their manager or maybe somebody else at the record label.
Yes, one of the biggest tragedies is how many, you know, the publishing is where the money is in the music industry. Right. So as an artist, you have a hit, that gives you the opportunity to go out and perform live and to make money there. And you're of course dealing with promoters, you're dealing with managers, which is where a lot of the shadiness comes in. But also a lot of the early groups, the Bobettes, for example, wrote Mr. Lee, and they were a little bit of an outlier because they were on Atlantic Records, who told them to open a publishing company and put their names on the song. So when you hear Mr. Lee, that is a song that the publishing went to the correct artists. But songs like Maybe by the Chantels, and there's a group called the Clickettes that we feature in the book. You know, a lot of times they would get the record and there's their manager, their record label owner, you know, as the person who credited for writing the song. And nobody knew at the time that these songs were going to be so valuable and that we were going to be talking about these songs in 2024. Everyone thought at the time that it was a flash in the pan. So no one really knew how much money we were talking about. But also the early groups, the Shirelles, the Chantels, the Bobettes, were writing a lot of their own things. And it feels like as soon as the music industry saw how much money there was, and there was in publishing, a system came into place of professional songwriters. And it became almost impossible to write your own song as an unknown artist and come in and get it recorded. Because at that point, there were songwriters who wrote all of the songs, and people like Carole King and Jerry Goffin and Neil Diamond, Ellie Greenwich and Jeff Barry, who wrote Be My Baby and Chapel of Love, and we talk about it in the book. And so it feels like an opportunity that the industry took away from young independent artists to actually make a lot of money in songwriting. And artists did take it back, because in the mid 60s, when the British invasion, meaning the Beatles, came, you know, a lot of people saw them writing their own songs and playing their own instruments, and they were inspired to do that instead. And so people started writing their own songs again. But for that moment in time, from the 50s and the early 60s, it was all professional songwriters. And so.
And I just want to remind our listeners who we're speaking with. We're speaking with Laura Flam. She is the co-author of But Will You Love Me Tomorrow? The article, I wrote an article about it. It is on the Washington Informer website, so you can do a search on that. But Will You Love Me Tomorrow, or Girl Groups. And before we close out, you've made a very important point about the ownership. We've got female artists today like Beyonce and Taylor Swift, who are owning their property. In fact, Taylor Swift had to do a what I call a roundabout in order to get that ownership of her stuff back after it was given to somebody else. But she's on top as well. And some of what's happening with these girl groups that we've been talking about, this year is the 60th anniversary of Chapel of Love by the Dixie Cups. I know a lot of folks remember that. And Barbara Ann Hawkins, who is an original member of the Dixie Cups, she is still performing. In fact, she's going to be at the New Orleans Jazz Festival this year. So they're still out there and they're still helping us to remember. And I just love how you've talked about the importance of this legacy and what it means in terms of understanding fully another aspect of American music. We don't want them to go away. We want them to be remembered. Talk about that a little bit before we close out.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, not only are the Dixie Cups performing at Jazz Fest, but the poster is those women and is the Dixie Cups, which is a huge honor, and we were very, very excited to see and ordered it. It's a beautiful poster. You know, the legacy of the girl groups. You know, Judy Craig, again from the Chiffons, said, you know, we went through what we went through, so artists coming after us would have it a little easier. And at the time that these girl groups were out there, they were really the first. They didn't have any lessons to look at artists who came before them and say, you know, I know what happened to these people. I'm calling a lawyer before I sign anything. And so, you know, one part of their legacy, I think, is inspiring so many other women to start their own careers and to be so much more empowered in those careers. But you know, there are a lot of stories of positivity and friendship, but there are also a lot of painful stories in the book of being exploited in various ways. And the women of the girl groups collectively, you know, this is a very small moment, very early on in their lives. You know, these are women now that are mostly in their 80s, and they have this very unique experience of having moved and continuing to move people all over the world and being part of something that is bigger than them as individuals, and their lives just taking on this course, this completely unexpected course where they, you know, they just will live forever through their songs. So it is something that is I'm not sure whether I'm answering your question or not, actually, now that I think about it.
Fine.
But it's something that is very beautiful and unique and special. And a lot of people have approached my co-author Emily Leibowitz and I and said, oh, it's so, you know, it's so sad what happened to so many of the women, which is true. But there is this other side, which is just the side of how much they've changed the world, how much they've changed individual people's lives. And so it is so important to realize who those women were. You know, this song, the Shirelles, who sings this song? You know, how did she come to sing this song? These women play an important part in history and in our everyday lives. So it's very important, in my opinion, to learn their stories and to learn from them.
Well, thank you again to you and Emily for bringing this history to us. I hope that we can show the book cover again as we're closing this interview. But Will You Love Me Tomorrow?
I happen to have it sitting right here, so here it is.
There it is, folks. This is a wonderful, wonderful documentation of an important part of music history. And thank you. And we'll turn the show back over to Denise. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you, everybody.
Oh gosh, I thought I was going to get ready to tell Brenda how. Oh, there you are. I said, where did she go? That was really great. I certainly, as always, enjoyed that interview, Brenda. And you mentioned so many of the great groups that I grew up on and loved, and we still sing those songs, right? I
Right.
guess you can hear me. Oh,
Going
okay.
to the chapel and we're 60 years old, that song is this year.
Exactly. Some of us think about, I'm wondering if folks today, and I guess they will, the young folks today with the artists and the hip hop music and what have you that they have. But we have so many songs that we could sing that we still remember 50 years
Yes.
later. We're still singing these songs. So I don't know if we've missed out, if they've missed out on something or what, but it's really good. So I'm glad. Thank you for the interview. And I want to thank folks who've been watching today. We really appreciate that. Brenda, we'll see who you bring to
Sure.
us next time. All righty. Thank you so much. So that concludes our broadcast today, everybody. We're wrapping up. We wrapped up the episode. We want to give a huge thanks to our guests who are doing so many other things at the same time. Earl Ofori, who, called us from the Smithsonian Museum of African History. Queen Sylvia Nagginda Luswata, who is here on a book tour from Uganda, and then of course our doula Tatiana, who is here, and of course the great conversation we just had regarding the book Will You Still Love Me? And we hope that you all will still love us. Remember, change begins with awareness and dialogue. Let's continue to spark great conversations, break barriers, and build a more inclusive future. Tune in next week for more inspiring discussions and impactful stories. I'm going to look to see what names you all may have shared with us of women, Women's History Month, that we might be able to highlight in the next couple of shows that we have for this month. And I'll just give you a sneak preview. In April, we will be observing and celebrating Earth Day. Sustainability. So if you have some great ideas about some things that are happening in your community where people are really working hard to save and protect the environment, or where you see some environmental injustices taking place, we want to hear from you. Our writer, Kayla Benjamin, is working on a special issue that will come out in April, and we want to hear your Earth Day stories. So until next week, have a wonderful weekend, and don't forget to turn those clocks back. I think Saturday, what do? We push them forward. They will go forward. So we're going to lose an hour. But don't forget to do that on Saturday night. And until then, I'm your host, Denise Rollard Barnes, signing off.